All right then. Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth part of our Negotiation Fundamentals webinar series. We've moved through the whole complexity of negotiations and we talked about interest-based negotiations a few weeks back. We talked about the challenges we face as lawyers when negotiating. We talked about how to negotiate numbers, also known as bargaining. And this week, we're moving into our last part. We'll be talking about how to communicate effectively, because no matter how good a negotiator you are, no matter how great your strategies are, you're going to have to be able to be an effective communicator throughout that. And for this fourth and last part of the series, I'm again very excited to have my co-host Svetlana Kalitsun with me, who I'll introduce in a moment. Before I do a quick introduction of who we are, for those of you who do not know us yet and have not been here for the last couple of webinars, my name is Claudia Winkler. I am dialing in from Vienna. I've been running Negotiation Academy for the past 6 years. My background is in law, but I realized very quickly that the foundational knowledge of law, the subject matter skills, do not get you to the same places that you could go if you also mastered how to apply the law, how to communicate around it, how to negotiate around it. So I've jumped on teaching this meta skill, so to say, after my LLM degree in the United States, where this is a skill that's much more widely, hi Scott, by the way, much more widely acknowledged and much more, it's been given the right kind of importance. So I decided back then in 2013, this is something we need to bring over to Europe, we need to expand to Asia, and we need to bring, especially to lawyers, because communication and negotiation is such a big part of our daily life, and it's one of the main criteria that determine how effective we can be in our work and how much we can stand out from other lawyers. So without further ado, I want to hand it over to my colleague Svetlana. Svetlana is also a lawyer, has been practicing in Vienna for the last 10 years and some of the largest firms here, has been working also in-house with large corporations. So she's had her very fair share of challenging negotiations with companies, with clients, with other councils all over the world. And she'll be talking about how to communicate effectively in this role. We'll take about 45 minutes, I believe, for the presentation. And then, as always, we'll be here for questions and we'll talk about what else you can do to become more effective as communicators. Over to you, Svetlana.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Thank you for this welcome introduction. Thank you for having me to everyone else. I will be talking about how to communicate effectively today. And let's jump in because we have prepared some ideas for you. So we have thought about the communication in a specific ways that we are doing that at the Negotiation Academy and have clarified 4 different parts of the the effective communication. And the first part is thinking ahead. The second, verbal communication that goes hand in hand with non-verbal communication. And the fourth is the active listening. All of these parts are very crucial for effective communication and cannot work without each other. So therefore, we will be talking about every single one of them and do some exercises, maybe discuss and answer your questions afterwards. So let's jump into the part of thinking ahead. It seems to be pretty obvious, not? We all need to prepare, we all need to do our homework, but still, I wanted to include this here because we need to be clear about what we want to communicate. Therefore, we need to be prepared, have a structure, and have a clear goal to everything that we're communicating. Because on the other side, if we don't have that, the communication can go different ways around. You can wander around like Alice in Wonderland. If you remember, she was wandering around and asking the cat which way to go. And the cat asked, which way do you want to go? Where do you want to get? And she answered, I don't know. Then the cat answered, well, it doesn't matter where you go. If you don't have a goal, you will be just wandering around. So there's another part that I would like to talk to you. The second part is the verbal communication. And this is what I'm doing right now to you. This is what we're all doing. And we are masters in that, I would say. But the very important part is asking questions. And asking questions is sometimes perceived as showing that I'm a weak person, or showing that I don't know anything, or something that I need something. And asking questions, it's not that popular between people, but we would advise you to ask direct questions. And you know what? They're brilliant negotiators. They are curious, they ask questions, they adjust to the people. They know that they don't know everything, and therefore asking questions. But sometimes asking question doesn't work that well, and I would like to show you an example so you'll realize what is the difference between the brilliant negotiators and some other people that have some difficulties with asking questions. We see here two people. Let's name him Max and she's Anna, and they are co-workers, and they want to talk. They want to have a usual talk, a small talk about the vacation. And Max would ask, so did you have a nice vacation? And she would answer, yes. Did you went to Goa, right? Yes. So did you end up with a beach vacation again? Yes. Don't tell me you went to Agonda Beach again. Yes. And did you enjoy it again? Yes. Did you have good weather? Yes. So then you probably went to the beach every day? Yes. Isn't that getting boring? No. Did you go and do anything else? No, really. Well, you must have done something else. Come on, don't make me tease everything out of you. What's wrong with you? I see smiles on your faces, and yes, absolutely right. It's not that good example of communication here. And what do you think went wrong here? Because he's actually a nice guy, and she obviously a woman that would answer these questions. What do you think went wrong here? The first person asking the wrong questions, or did the second person didn't want to answer them and doesn't feel like talking? What do you think? Just write it into the chat by replying number 1 or 2, and I will be vocalizing it for you so everyone will know what's the reason. I see the first one, two, 1, first 1, okay, 1. Oh, we have some good negotiators here and also good communicators. Mostly 1, some 2. Very good. It depends. Usually very good answer, designed by a lawyer. Absolutely right. Yes, I can congratulate you. You came exactly to the same conclusion that I came to, because the problem is that the first person is asking the wrong questions. They are closed questions, and they only imply that the answer would be yes or no. And it doesn't matter whether the other person wants to talk and chat and tell you more. If we ask this kind of a questions, the outcome will be very predictable, and it's going to be a very short no or yes question. If you have luck, maybe. But that's it. So therefore, we have created this slide for telling you how the structure and the strategy of asking question works better. So the great negotiators, they first ask the open questions. These are the opposite to the closed ones. These are the start, for example, with tell me more about, or they start with the word what, how, where, describe, what is your goal, for example. Or another example would be, can you give me more details? As you can see from this perspective, you give a lot of freedom to the person to answer in a free way. And the goal of this open question is to start off the conversation, to get the information on the table, and to get more details on that. After that, we move to detailed questions. As soon as you have the information on the table, then you can go down and drill on the details. And these are questions where you add some details that you learned when asking open questions. For example, what are the unrealized losses? Or what was the cost for the license? What was the contract with the staff? Can you quantify the losses from the wind plant? As you imagine, you still have this part from the open questions, the what part. They are still kind of opened, but you have added some detail. And the goal of this question is to open a discussion and to clarify the information that you got out of the open questions. And after you have had a very good conversation, usually in the best way, you can ask the closed questions that they will narrow down to the concrete answer, yes or no. So do we agree on this, as an example? Shall we lock this in? Will you consult your board about this? Shall we move ahead with the 3.5%? These are the closed questions, and they will bring you to the conclusion. Right then. Since I gave you the information, I would like to start with an exercise and to offer you to paraphrase the closed question into the open questions. And for that, you can unmute yourself and offer your perspective on that, or you can put your answer into the chat. So I will vocalize it for you. Depends on you, absolutely. Just try to use this small sentence and to make an open sentence with that by using how, where, when, describe, whatever, and so on. So feel free, just unmute and jump in. In what way is it important to you? Why is this important to you? Great, perfect. Very good answers, absolutely right. How is that important to you was my suggestion. Thank you very much. We can move on to the second question. Do you like your boss? A very specific question. I hope no one will get it in this direct way. Okay, I have the first answer. What about your boss do you like? Very good. What do you think about your boss? More often open, you use the word what? Very good. How is your boss? Okay. Tell me about your relationship with your boss. Very good. You put the relationship, the word into that. How is your boss like? What are the things you like or you dislike about your boss? Very good. Very good. My suggestion was, what kind of relationship do you have with your boss? Absolutely. I think Armando Cruz has got exactly, more or less exactly the same sentence. Great, great work, guys. Is there anything else we can do or you can do? How would you put it into the open question? This sentence is usually used at the very end of every negotiation or of most of the negotiation, when you just narrow down and then you think about options. Okay, we have the first answers. How well do you get with your boss? Okay, that was the answer to another question. What else we can do? Okay, great. That was the answer to the last question. What else we can do? Very good. Absolutely. What else we can do? Then you introduce also the word we. Creates unity. Great. Another example would be, is this your best offer? Also used at the end of negotiation.
Of very poor negotiators. The earlier you use it, the worse off you will be.
What best can you offer? What best can you offer? Okay, that's open question too. Do you think there is anything else that we could do? Great. Have you got anything in your mind? I would add to anything else in your mind. Do you have another offer? Good. How could we get better this offer? I believe it's Great ideas, guys. What other options could we create that might work for you and my needs would be my suggestion here. Let's move to another sentence. Is the seat of the arbitration important to you? We're talking here about the seat of the arbitration. How important is the seat of the arbitration to you? Absolutely right. I have the feeling that someone is very, very good negotiator here. What are your important points on the arbitration clause would be my suggestion. Or maybe what are your views on the seat of arbitration? We have another suggestion. Do you have a presence about the seat of arbitration? Very good. Very good. Let's move to another one. Do you really need 3.5% fee to operate this project? How would you make an open question out of this one? I see people thinking and typing. Okay, we're getting the first answers. How willing would you be to rethink about the 3.5% fee? How much do you really need to operate this project? What would be minimum fee for you for your charge? My suggestion would be, what is the rationale behind the 3.5% fee? This way you ask about the underlying interests of the fee. We have another suggestion. How did you come up with the 3.5%? Very good, guys. You have created the open questions here. I have another exercise here. Do you get along well with the joint venture company? I will repeat the question. Do you get along well with the joint venture company? First question, first answers. How would you describe your relationship with the joint venture? Very good. How would you get along with the joint venture? What's your relationship with the joint venture company? What has been your experience with the joint venture companies? Very good. How is your relationship with the joint venture company like? Or how do you feel about the joint venture company? Great ideas. Have you had any problem in the past with the joint venture company? I would recommend to answer that.
What are the two possible answers to that?
Yeah, that's the closed question actually, but you have tried, and we have actually created many possibilities here. I'm surprised how many ideas you have, guys. It's a great pool of action here. What do you like most about the joint venture company? Very good. Okay,
that's an interesting one, if I might add, because in this way, Felix, you're spinning the question. I don't know if you're a lawyer by background as well, but we would call that a leading question because it's clearly getting the person that's supposed to answer into one direction. What did you like most is give me the positive as opposed to what problems did you have? Give me the negative. So it is an open question in a sense, but it's at the same time a leading question that gets you into one specific direction. So it's much more narrow.
Thanks for the feedback.
Great, thank you for your feedback, guys. It's amazing how many ideas you have created here. And yes, I have presented the last sentence to you. And let's move forward to another element of the effective communication, and this is the non-verbal communication. And it goes hand in hand with the verbal communication and says that you cannot not communicate. The non-verbal communication is your posture, your tone of voice, your facial expressions, this is how you present yourself, and this is what people see. The study say, and they are different. There are a variety of numbers, and the numbers are usually pretty high, of saying that non-verbal communication, the way we present each other, the way we sit strong and present ourselves, improves and influences the decision by very much. So everything that we present besides the words will be read and interpreted together with what we represent. Therefore, our words, our verbal communication needs to be backed up by the nonverbal communication. And sometimes people don't think about it, but it's very important to have the eye contact. It's very important to sit strong. And if you imagine myself just sitting like this, and maybe not looking or looking somewhere else, and checking my phone, whatever that is, slouching and not talking loud, maybe very easily looking somewhere else and being like a very little mouse, it does not come over as safe and secure person. It does not represent what you want to represent. Therefore, it is very important to sit up, to have the feet on the ground firmly, to gesticulate calmly, and keep good eye contact. And sometimes it's a very obvious techniques, but many people don't realize that. Therefore, I would very much like to invite you to make a video of yourself, especially right now. We are also locked down because of Corona at home, and it's we all need to present online, and it's very important to have a very good eye connection, because if I would be sitting like here, or if you would just see my face, sometimes people sit like this, it just doesn't make good good posture and does not back up your ideas. And no matter what you say, it will all be connected to your picture. Therefore, try to make videos of yourself, try to watch it all over again and learn from your perspective, because sometimes even just sitting up, and the difference is like, if I'm sitting up right now, okay, and this is me slouching, and the small difference is only a few millimeters, but do you see the difference? It's up and not much up. I'm sitting not straight up, not talking to people directly, and not having eye contact will just take your credibility away, no matter what you say. So, and the fourth element that is very important to effective communication is the active listening part. And active listening is completely different to the usual listening, because we give our attention without any rest. So we give the uninterrupted and undivided attention to the person, and it's a precious one, because nowadays we don't do that. We are all over the place, but not here directly with the person. And therefore, it is very important to focus deeply on the speaker. If you have your client in front of yourself, just give them the feeling that you listen to them. If you have a person that is a friend or maybe a family member, you'll see completely different reaction to yourself listening to them. It is also very important to make sure that you understand them fully and accurately, because if you get just the hints, few ideas out of the whole conversation, you might miss something important, and then you will not be able to participate in the conversation. And it's also important to listen on multiple levels. If you remember from previous webinars, we were talking about the positions, like the peak of the iceberg. First, you have the positions, the ideas that our colleagues, our co-workers, our clients telling us directly straight away. For example, I want to sue this company, or we want to file this and that. Then this is a position. But as underlying, you have the interests that are the fears, the motivations, the ideas that are there. And therefore, we need to read between the lines and look for the interests and also for the emotions. Because if you think about the nonverbal communication, it's it completely transforms the emotion to yourself. So therefore, look and listen to the emotions of your people too. And it is also very important to listen and understand, and not to reply, because that's the mindset that you have in your mind and that's the basic issue that we also have to deal with, that most of the people, they listen to reply, and therefore they listen to the bits and put up already, while someone's speaking, put up the answer. And this is not the best way to deal with that. Therefore, it's very important to listen to understand. You don't need to reply to the people, you just need to give them your attention, and then you will see the difference. Therefore, it's the genuine attitude, the genuine interest. I would like to invite you to be creative, to be curious about people, and just give them the attention, and you'll see how different it's going to be. And therefore, we would like to start an exercise in how good can you listen, and give yourself the chance to prove what I have just told you. And therefore, we will put you in different rooms, electronic rooms, with 4 different people, and we would ask the first person to share a recent conflict situation. A second person will be listening to the facts and summarize it afterwards. So you'll have 10 minutes. First person speaks 2 to 3 minutes, and then the next person speaks also 2 to 3 minutes, just summarizes the facts that this person has heard from this conflict situation. The third person will be listening for the emotions and summarize it. Also, just emotions and just for summarizing. And the fourth person will be listening to the interests that underline the ideas and also summarize it.
So I'll be putting you into rooms of 4 people each. This should add up exactly with the number we are right now. This is the communication workshop, so you're going to have to unmute yourself. See if everyone can find the unmute button. You're going to have to speak to each other. You don't need to turn on your camera if you're shy, but we're going to need you to speak. So in recap, we need 1 person in each room. Person number 1 that shares a story. Anything recently that's been bothering you, anything that's been going on at work or at home, anything that wasn't so okay and that you might want to vent about, even anything that you're comfortable sharing. And then the other 3 people are just listening, not interrupting, not saying, oh my God, that happened to me as well the other day, or here's what you should do. No, just sip it, just listen, and summarize after the speaker is done. So the first person who listens, so person number 2, will listen only for the facts. The next person listens only for the emotions that they hear out of the story. And the third person listens for interests. So what is underneath of what you're saying? What's between the lines? If you're having trouble assigning roles, you can go by the first letter in your names underneath the video. So whoever has the lowest letter can start telling a story, and then the second lowest listens to the facts, the third one to emotions, the fourth one to interests. So I recommend you write these 3 down so you still remember when you're in the rooms. I think most of you are familiar with our breakout room system by now. You'll soon only see 3 other people with you in the room, and you'll have 15 minutes. So make sure your story isn't too long. You can also volunteer, of course, to share a story, whoever would like to. Make sure it's not too long, something 3-4 minutes, so that the others get a chance to summarize in the end. If you have any questions, you can always click, there's a little panic button at the bottom. You can always click that and we'll come and answer some of these questions. If there's only 3 people in your room for any reason, then just do the first 2, then just summarize interests and emotions. Just split that up if you don't have enough people that are able to unmute or whatever the reason. All right, we'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay. Jetzt sind ein paar rausgesprungen. So everyone's coming back. The ones who finished the story. Others are still scrambling the last couple of seconds. Okay, I think we have everyone back.
Welcome back, guys. Did you enjoy the event?
The stories of other people.
Yes, yeah. Very, very funny actually, and nice to see.
Absolutely. It's always great to have to hear someone else's stories. We all love stories. It's amazing.
True.
Great. We have some written feedback also. Yes, they did. I'm very happy that you liked it too, because it's also very interesting for us to have these groups of people and also visit you. So I hope it was also good for you to have us around us answering your questions. I have questions to the speakers. How was it to be listened to and get those summaries for you? How did you feel?
Those of you who were sharing the story, how was that?
I have some written feedback here. It was great. Maybe someone wants to tune in and tell us his or her vocal feedback.
That is a closed answer, Nishka. We can't do with that. We need a more open answer. Anyone else want to jump in?
I think it was quite. Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the experience was quite different, especially the breakdown of the conflict. So I was supposed to present the conflict, and the breakdown of the conflict from somebody else's perspective was quite interesting.
How so?
I'm guessing you don't sort of actually analyze the emotions when you're speaking them, nor are you able to prioritize the interests that sort of came from your conversation while you're having it. So it will take an astute observation on yourself or somebody else to figure those out for you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. That's absolutely the idea, that there are many levels and layers to what we're saying, and therefore we listen. Sometimes we focus just on the facts, but then forget the emotions, or sometimes we look at the emotions but don't listen to the facts that clearly. It's a very good point. Someone else want to jump in?
I think I'd just like to add on to that. So it was quite nice to see how same set of story can have different perspective, and it was also good to hear it being analyzed and broken up into so many parts, and hear the perspective and also get back reflecting on what the underlying interests and everything were.
Great. So you enjoyed it, having your story analyzed from a different perspective, and also having it summarized for you, to giving would be like the feedback to you, like getting your information back. Is it right?
Yeah, I would say it was quite insightful. It gave me a different perspective to the same story.
Perfect. That was the purpose of that. Do we have another speaker here?
Hi. Well, the others that were in the same room with me, they actually got all my points. Although I struggled to sound convincing, because it was not my story, it was not a personal story, but a story of a customer. So I was struggling to sound angry and to sound frustrated, but they got it. They got these points. Scott, who did the emotions part, he got almost all the points, all the emotions that I had. So it was I realized that this is an issue for kids that, not kids, but students, that they take part in these mediation competitions. They are given these scenarios and the roles, and they try to be, you know, to believe in what they actually say. Sorry, it's not, English is not my mother tongue, so I don't know how to express myself clearly. But I think they've got an issue, all these people that they take part in these competitions, the mediation competitions, to sound persuasive and convincing, you know, about the role playing the parties. So that was my thing.
With other words, you have felt being in the shoes of your students, obviously, who have also needed to act on the emotions, and that's the hardest part, because if you have your authentic emotions, it's easy to show, but if this emotion doesn't match your own, then it's a different one. But did you enjoy having someone listen to your
Yes, it was very good. Yeah.
Very
Excellent
good
exercise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And what about the listeners? What was it like to listen and focus on a specific topic?
And maybe just one aspect of it. What did that feel like?
To me, was the most interesting part was seeing if my job was to observe the emotions regarding the speech she was providing. To me, the most interesting part was how she fluctuated in emotion, starting from feeling sad about a situation that had happened, from being angry to a situation that was caused by the situation that made her sad. It was interesting because it was a variation I wasn't expecting.
So it was interesting for you to listen to someone else from a different perspective. Is this correct?
I'd say it's a bit imprecise, but yes, generally correct.
Just tell us more.
It's not that the interesting part was in observing a different perspective. The interesting part for me was to separate what I was expecting from her speech from what I perceived from her. Not necessarily her perspective on what she was speaking or my agreements or disagreements with that perspective, but how that wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I was surprised more than agreeing or disagreeing with it.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting point, because that happens really often if you think about it, especially with lawyers. The moment you start telling a story and they will box you in a category, they're like, oh yeah, I've done 100 M&A deals like this. Here's your solution. I know exactly what your problem is. But as you say, if we listen closer, sometimes we'll be surprised how the story actually turns. That's completely opposite of what we thought was going to come.
When you specialize in something, repetition is a reality. Think, well, you're a specialist. The things that you specialize in will happen more often for you, even though in the universe it will happen not that much. But for you, your specialty will happen very often. So you grow a sense of closed hearing, if you will. You get 3 facts and you pinpoint what's going to happen next. It works 90% of the time. The trick is the other 10%.
Getting those, the man with the hammer and the nail principle. I guess you've all heard of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So maybe another listener? What was it like for you to listen? Was it difficult? Was it easy? Did you feel well with the emotions?
What was interesting about it?
I think something that I found really interesting was to try and take away while summarizing the incident, trying to take away the important aspects of the incident, because I'm the type of person who finds everything important. When you summarize, you just have to pick up the really important parts of what the speaker is telling you. So I think I found that to be a little challenging, but I think I managed to do okay. So yeah.
Yes, you're addressing to this point of summarizing and already thinking about the important parts. So you understand your focus is completely different when summarizing. than just listening. Okay, and then you just, because usually we listen in the beginning, then something happens, and then we jump in at the end. So listening and focusing on the topic is sometimes challenging, but I'm sure that you have done a great work. I have a few points to sum up here, because listening also builds trust, and it calms other side. It usually gives them the feeling that someone is listens. And have you heard maybe this expression, "I hear you"? This is a very good sentence that I advise you to use. As soon as you tell people, "I hear you," they just calm down. They are relaxed and they proceed in a nice way. It can also de-escalate a conflict, because if someone's angry, the best way is just to let them go and not to answer fire by fire. And as long as you let them talk and let them their room, they will easily calm down, and the conflict will be de-escalated in most parts. It also shows the appreciation and the respect to your counterpart, because you have the focus. That's the best thing that you can give in front the person in front of yourself. It's not like giving money or food or something else. It's your attention. It's the very essence of yourself right now. And it also helps to clarify, because you summarize, you pick up the best topics, you listen carefully, and then you really need to be focused on this. And it also helps to solve the approach, and gives you the approach of solving problems. So I have here a very interesting chart that I like. It's from the G.R. Shell, from his book of Bargaining for Advantage. And he has research on the lawyers, how they realized and how they managed to gather the information, and has compared the skilled negotiators techniques with the average negotiator techniques. And it came out that the skilled negotiators have spent twice as much time as the usual negotiators on gathering information. So 38.5% in the sum were spent. It's like 40% really. It's a huge chunk of work is usually spent on gathering information, on getting to the point, asking questions, testing the understanding that people have got, and then summarizing the problems that Aisha has just mentioned, and just to come to the conclusion, just to be ready to make any decision. They spend 40% of the time on gathering information. So that's a very good example for good work. So to sum up, we have been talking today about thinking ahead, about verbal communication, and how it works together with nonverbal communication, and also have done some exercise on listening. I hope very much that you can use all the 4 techniques and all the 4 pieces and elements of the effective communication, and just use it, and come back to us if you have any questions, and also maybe some interesting insights, interesting stories. We would love to hear them. Connect on LinkedIn. And we still have this coupon for the Master Negotiation course at our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Svetlana. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for those of you who are saying, "I hear you." I have to add something on "I hear you," though. Be careful with how often you use that, because it can also, it's a good start, but it can also become a bit odd if you keep saying that. So even better than that would be to actually summarize what you've heard the other side say, because then they really know you're listening. So don't overdo it with that. Not that you're all now going out, keep saying, "I hear you." That's an important personal point, maybe, because I've heard it too often by now. Maybe it's because I've said it too often in the beginning. So with that, thank you.
I just wanted to make one point. Quite funny incident actually, where one of my seniors started with saying, like, when after a client had listed down a lot of issues that he had very passionately, brought down all the conflicts and everything, and the senior says, "I hear you," and the minute he says after "I hear you," he says "but," and then the client just automatically loses the train. He's like, no, you haven't heard me, you just not done that. So I think that was a little odd.
Yeah,
because, I mean, he says "I hear you," but XYZ.
Yeah.
So that sort of went a little counterproductive to hearing.
Used the word "I hear you" is just this, can be the start and can be the end and so on. The way that I use it only once in the conversation, and I use it when they are out of the rage, when they just like blowing out, and as soon as they hear "I hear you," then they don't stop talking, but they are a little bit more calm. They still keep talking and so on, and after that you summarize and then you work with other techniques. But just the thing that I wanted to give you, it puts people down a notch in this rage and emotion.
It really depends on that context. Yeah, as you said, if you use it to cut the other person off while they're still speaking because you want to get your word in and add your but, if someone speaks and you're like, I hear you, then that's not how it works. If you let the other person finish, give it another 3 seconds, and then really say in a meaningful way, I hear you, and then let them continue without a but, then it has a different meaning. So it depends on the context.
Mm.
I agree.
I have the feeling that Eduardo Sancho has got a question.
Hi, I have a question about the consequences of how you described active listening. You see, let me turn. Sorry. When you spoke, you said you clear your mind and you pay attention precisely to what the person is saying, and you summarize in your head what the person is saying. You were attentive to whatever it is that she's saying. When I was doing my part on the workshop, I felt something that I thought would be complicating if a conversation were to ensue with that person. For instance, I'm talking to you right now, you're listening to me right now, and you're doing what you said. You're paying attention, you're summarizing what I'm saying. If that person at the end asks me a question, how am I going to take all that I'm constantly summarizing in my head, not reasoning about it, not extrapolating to answer a question that I asked myself? How am I going to take all that information that I have right now without creating lapse in the conversation? I'm asking you a question right now, and as I'm asking you, I imagine that you're going to answer it. Now, if I'm just sitting and concentrating only on what you're saying and not doing that mental effort to extrapolate and think about it, how are you going to continue a conversation without looking like you weren't actually paying attention because you stopped?
Practice. You've got to be able to do them both at the same time, I'm afraid. So you're going to have to listen on 3 different levels, get all that in, and also make sense of it at the same time. The important thing is that you're not just in your own head thinking about what will be my next answer, because that will be taking away a lot of processing capacity from listening to the other person. And don't feel like you have to have an answer to everything immediately. Like there's no problem taking a second, take 3 seconds, think about it once they've stopped, and then reply. For us, this feels like an eternity, but to the other side, it doesn't. It's totally legitimate, especially in negotiations, to take a moment and then first maybe summarize what they're saying, because while you're doing that, your brain is thinking about, now what's my opinion about it. So this summary of what you've just heard them say, let me just make sure I got that right. So what you're saying is that buys you extra time again. It structures the thoughts in your head, and then at that time you will think about, so what's actually my next move on that.
Yeah, my follow-up question was exactly if summarizing what the person just said is a viable strategy to getting a little.
If you are structured, not everyone is so structured as yourself. If you summarize that, you will help them to structure their thoughts too. And it's sometimes really helpful, because as the more, I mean, like that's my perspective, but the more creative they are, I deal and talk a lot with artists. They all over the place. It's sometimes just very, very important just to listen to them and say, okay, I hear this, I hear that, I hear that. How can I help you? What can we do? And then you just keep them on the ground somehow. You know, it's like heads in the clouds. Not everyone is so focused as yourself, and not everyone knows a lot about communication and also summarizing. But it's a journey, and it's a very, very powerful tool.
It's mainly practice.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions that you have? See if there's anything in the chat. A lot of thank yous and byes. Okay then. Well, if there's anything else, do get in touch. Make sure you're connected with us on LinkedIn. You've got our emails. You'll find us. You probably found us there already, or from the newsletter. Do send us anything that's of interest. Stay in touch. Share your experiences of what you've done with these skills, what you've experimented with, any other questions you have. This was the last session of this 4-part series for our Foundations of Negotiation online workshop with Svetlana. So that's the last one for now. Well, if there's anything we'll see how the next couple of weeks and months are going, how the world is going to rotate from now on. See if we'll do a couple more of these webinars, maybe on another subject. If there's anything you'd like to learn about, particularly, shoot us an email, shoot us a message. Let us know what would be interesting to you, what you'd like to talk about. And then maybe we'll see you hopefully again soon in this format or back in person. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great weekend. I hope we'll see you all soon. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.